honor to have with me esteemed guest Angela Walker, vice presidential candidate for the Green Party. Um, I'm going to be straight up honest. I am not an objective reporter. I fully support Angela Walker. Um, her, a lot of her positions, and especially the idea of building the Green Party, building political power outside of the imperialist, racist, Democrat, Republican duopoly, oppress people here in the United States and the people around the world. Um, I don't have a. I'm a flatbed truck driver. Taking a little bit of my time out, my one day off, to try to get the message out there, to try to spread scientific socialist understanding, and build political power for the people to make this a better world. Simply that straight. I believe Angela Walker is is out there. What I talk about every week, she's out there doing, putting the work in, building the power. Absolutely inspired by her. Uh, the working class is tired of the treatment of workers and the people around the world by both parties. Both parties are complicit. Donald Trump, who emboldens the racist KKK, reactionary forces, is the opposite side of the coin of figures like Joe Biden with the crime bill, which is an architect of the systems of institutional racism and institutional classism. There is no hope in building within their parties. It is a place where our movements are co-opted and go to die. Um, I sent Angela Walker a friend request on Facebook. I think various green groups. I'm not sure why, and she great. I was so amazed that you accepted it. And then on your page, your personal page, I have seen powerful posts that can only come through the pain of being working class, um, and going through the struggle. And clear, powerful, anti-imperialist sentiment, that I'm amazed. um, I was very much inspired by. Um, so on this page, I'm trying to promote scientific socialism, and one has to look at the link between the lynchings, the lynching of poor black and brown folks, recently George Floyd, and the brutal repression of African Americans in Chicano, is linked to the suppressions of the working class in general, and against the aggressions against the people of Venezuela, Bolivia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, and China. The Democratic Party has applauded figures like Juan Guaido, and they've shown themselves incapable. And we need to build power outside of the Democratic Party. Angela Walker is doing that, and we're absolutely inspired. Your recent video post, I believe you posted yesterday. I got a few notes from it. Angela Walker is a fellow driver, working class, mother, organizer, fought against privatization of public schools, expansion of public transit, both access and funding, and anti-war veteran, against state violence and police repression. Angela Walker, an honor to have you on the show today. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us your background. Tell us your story.
Well, first off, I'm honored to be here. And someone's asking in the chat, do I think Russiagate is real? I can honestly say, like, that hasn't been something I've been focused on. We've got a lot happening in this country. as far as what's going on the ground with the rebellion, with looming evictions, with this pandemic. So that's a little esoteric for me as far as where my concentration is. Um, I am the working class kid of working class folks. I am originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I now live in Florence, South Carolina, where I'm much happier. Um, and I have pretty much been an activist most of my life. First thing I think I got in trouble for activist wise was in high school for not pledging the flag way back when. Um, so, and I served as the legislative director for the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 998. Got them tattooed on my arm. For about 2.5, 3 years. I was a driver for Milwaukee County Transit for 4 years. And I ran against former Sheriff, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke in 2014 as an independent socialist. And we got 20% of the vote, shockingly. No idea how that happened. But that, and if anyone knows David Clarke, he's the black guy with the cowboy hat on Fox News. I guess it is. He's one of their pundits. Not a nice fella. So that happened, and that I think, if I recall correctly, that election pulled the highest amount of votes in any third party election that had happened that year, and it got the attention of the Socialist Party of the U.S. And so Mimi Emilio Soltysik talked to me and wanted to know if I was willing to run representing the Socialist Party for vice president of the U.S. in 2016, and I did. And swore off politics. I mean, there's things I'm always going to ride for, but as far as doing things politically, being the person at the front with the megaphone, because I mean, I was a member of Occupy, the Occupy Coalition in Wisconsin, Occupy Milwaukee, Occupy the Hood / Decolonize the Hood, where we were focusing on Black and Brown issues in Milwaukee. Member of a bunch of stuff, getting involved in, and I've done work around fighting privatization of public schools, expanding public transit access, and lobbying for funding at the state level. So I was tired. In 2016, I decided, I was done and moved down here, and I drive my dump truck and I'm quiet. And I got a call from Howie Hawkins. And I'm thinking, because Howie and I have been on panels and, we know one another and have been in discussions. And I figured, I knew he was running for president. I figured he wanted an endorsement or like, hey, say, let people know where you stand on this. And that isn't what he asked. So here I am. I am proud to be running with Howie Hawkins as his running mate for the Green Party presidential election of 2020. Here we are.
Wow, inspiring. I wasn't gonna. There's so many parallels. I actually was in. I was in marching band, and I also refused to say the Pledge of Allegiance in high school, out of respect for the immigrant community and an end to the wars. And actually, I was in a small town here in North Carolina, Lee County, after the abhorrent defender of slavery, which I'm hoping to rename. It will happen eventually. But I played the baritone, and my senior year, I was at the football games. I had to play the Star Spangled Banner, and at the beginning of it, the band major would say "horns up," and I had a big giant horn. And the second he started playing, I would go "horns down," and it was big, and I got a lot of death threats. But I wasn't going to mention that story, but just some of the parallels. That's amazing. It really goes to show like the changing like on this. I support scientific socialism and scientific socialist understanding, and it is the material conditions. So there was probably people all over this country that just in poverty or dealing with oppression that just felt the same way. And there's people all over this country that did that back in high school, our age, and young folks coming up now. It's just amazing. There's a lot of opportunity. I didn't mean to go into that.
No, it was good.
I'll go on to the next question, and that is, can you tell us a little bit about the campaign, the positions it's going on, the strategy? From my understanding, it has a great. It's pushing for the Green New Deal, which
Yes.
would invest in economic and environmental infrastructure. Has an economic bill of rights, immediate assistance to people struggling now with unemployment. Tell us a little bit about the platform and maybe a little bit of the current strategy of the campaign.
Well, we got a 50 state strategy. One of the things that I hear from a lot of people, or I get asked a lot, is, is this a run for, just to get your word out there, or do you intend to win? Do you have a 50 state strategy? We absolutely do have a 50 state strategy. And if there was ever a year that we could win, it's this one. So I am fiercely optimistic about getting this message out, and also that we can win this year. And there's a lot to our platform. There's a lot in it. And we're standing for the decriminalization of marijuana and other drugs, and using the Portugal model to address drug use or substance use rather, as a health issue rather than a criminal issue, which loops into, the calls that we're hearing from, the movement for Black Lives to defund the police, which is simply reallocating the money from police budgets, which take the lion's share in a lot of municipalities, and reallocating those monies to wraparound services that communities need. Because if you're thinking about the fact that police are responding to what, 5% of the crimes that they respond to are violent, the rest of these things are things we can address in other ways that, don't end up with people being murdered. And so, like you touched on the eco-socialist Green New Deal, there is a plan in our platform to get us through the COVID pandemic, which would include a basic income above poverty. And during COVID, all adults would receive $2,000 a month. All children would receive $500 a month during the pandemic. And then continuing beyond the pandemic, we would still have a universal basic income above minimum wage, or above poverty, excuse me. Rent control and public housing, universal rent control. During the pandemic, there would be a moratorium on evictions, foreclosures, and utilities. And then going forward, so that people are not facing the crisis that we're looking at, getting ready to play out right now, when those moratoriums end, the state would pay for, what wasn't paid during the moratorium. So you're not putting people on the street. And there's so many other, there's like a bunch of stuff in this platform. Of course, we support no first use of nuclear weapons. There's a ban on fracking and fossil fuel infrastructure, with a just transition to move people away from fossil fuel dependency. Not like cold turkey and smack people in the head, doesn't work like that. So, this is something that is very doable. And at the heart of it all is the socialist understanding and a socialist government that basically says, you live here, community control, put the control of corporations, the control of these businesses, control of schools, control of public entities, put it in public hands. It's that simple. And so when we're talking about democratic socialism, getting people, really we the people, running our government and having a say in what is produced, how it is produced, who things benefit. It's completely built all the way through our policy platform.
Great. Let's see. We'll go. So the last question, I might give a little bit. Um, so it's no secret. I voted for Barack Obama in 2008, straight out of high school. First, I was seven. I think I registered when I was 17, voted when I was 18. I'm not sure,
Mm-hmm.
and I immediately wished I would have voted for Cynthia McKinney. Her speech that she gave, "Take Our Country Back," speaking against NAFTA that the Democrats passed, was absolutely inspiring. And I voted Green Party in the presidential election ever since then. And I am a Marxist. And the way I see it, I really like forces like Ajamu Baraka of the Black Agenda Report. I think
Yes.
his analysis is spot on. It is one of the most coherent, precise, anti-imperialist analysis in this country, and it links, and he endorsed Howie Hawkins, and it links the struggle of oppressed people here, the working class here, and struggles of the people around the world dealing with repression from the CIA. I want to have a response to. You don't have to answer any questions that come up. I mean, I got a lot of people on here. You don't have to address them if you don't feel the need. I just want to say that there is absolute necessity to get people out from underneath the illusions of the Democratic Party. There is a liberal, petty bourgeois, white and black misleadership
Agreed.
that is telling people to vote against their interests. And regardless of what your position is on some minor issues, we need a broad mass party to build political control outside of these war criminals, absolute war criminals, disgusting, horrific people like Obama, who destroyed Libya, carried out a coup in Honduras, deported more people than Trump. I mean,
He also put a price on the side of, and he also put a price on the side of Shakur's head, which I found extremely ironic.
Wow. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting how they convinced poor black and brown folks here to support these monsters. And I'm absolutely amazed at the work you're doing. So that leads me to the last question. I'm going to kind of quote you on your video. Tell us about the capacity of the Green Party. How do we grow and broaden the Green Party to address this failed capitalist system? Harness the power of the people who have had enough of the status quo.
I think that we need, in fact, I don't think that we need, I know that we need to build relationships with people. And I think that is something that the Greens have done as far as making themselves available to the community, being a part of their communities. I don't think we have a problem with that. But I think, as Howie says all the time, we have to move from being activists to being organizers. And in order to be, and you know this as well as I do, in order to be effective as an organizer, you have to build relationships with people that mean something, that are not intended to turn them out for an election or for an action or for, a name on a petition. You know what I'm saying? People know when you're blowing smoke up their tails, and they know when they're being used. And so I think that, the most important thing, if we are intending to grow our party, is to make sure that we are present, that we are, when we're at actions that we did not organize, that we're being, respectful of the organizers, getting to know the people who are organizing, and also the people that they're working with. know those communities, build relationships in those communities, let them see us helping. And, it's easier to talk to people, or they get curious about you when they see you doing things that they respect and that you're consistent with it and that you're not, self-aggrandizing. And so I think just taking a very humble, very old school approach, let's build relationships with people outside of what what the way that people perceive this party to be, which is when you say Green Party to a lot of people, if they know who we are, the first thing they go is, it's nothing but white people. And, is not necessarily true, but that's the perception. And so we have to make sure that we are keeping up with what the community is asking for and making sure that we are interacting with them in ways that build meaningful relationships.
Great answer. We're only 20 minutes in. I guess we can continue a while. In North Carolina, this is our first time Greens are on the ballot. And I actually was very honored to vote in the primary. There was only one candidate on the ballot, Howie Hawkins, and I was glad to cast his vote. And it was through hard work from local activists here like Tony Nudge, who also endorsed Howie Hawkins. They got us ballot access. And I'm just amazed that I'm able to vote for someone, fill out a bubble for the president in the United States. Our government, the biggest purveyor of violence, as Martin Luther King said. I'm able to vote someone who isn't advocating for that violence for the first time. Although not having to remember it and write in, but actually go on the ballot, the place that's supposedly the defender of democracy.
Mm-hmm.
We have little choices between horrific war criminals, rapists, and pedophiles of both parties. Maybe I'll just I wasn't really building into anything. I was just giving stories. So maybe
I was
we'll
actually looking at
okay, go ahead.
over here
Go
in the
ahead.
chat.
Mm-hmm.
What worries me and my comrades are oceans of plastic and a planet of slums. Perfectly said. I think that's perfectly said. And I think that one of the strengths of the Green Party is the fact that we are the only party that is explicitly about reversing climate change. Explicitly, that this is, the ecological piece is built into the party platform, it is built into our campaign platform. And being that I have, and I was talking to my daughter and my aunt about this today, I have 5 grandchildren. I not only need them to be able to grow up and thrive without being hunted down because of the color of their skin, I also need them to be able to live on a thriving planet. And so, making sure that, and I think like you were making the connection between oppressed people, where we stand with oppressed people within the borders of this country and also oppressed people around the world. We're the only party that makes the link between the oppression of human beings and the exploitation of the planet herself and her resources and non-human life. And so I think those things are really resonating, particularly with young people who are pushing the movement against climate change and who are basically handing us old heads our behinds because we have allowed it to get to this point. We're mortgaging their future. They have every right to be angry. And so I think that one of the way that, the comrade put this is absolutely correct. And we don't have the luxury of kicking that can down the road because we want political expediency. If we're going to flip the table, Let's flip it.
Right on. I think what I was going in earlier was a message about hope, but I kind of there's a burning question I have is there's not a lot of politicians that are truck drivers. It doesn't happen. So, as your experience as a driver, and maybe not necessarily for the campaign, but just as an individual, what are some things the government could do to help uh, drivers? What could be done for our safety and resource?
We need safe working conditions. We need paid sick leave. We need we need green infrastructure. So we're not being exposed to things that make us sick. We need Medicare for all because you know as well as I do, driving a large vehicle beats your body up. And people a lot of the time, I've heard it said, I've been a commercial driver for almost 20 years. And so I've had people tell me, well, all y'all do is sit up there. And it's like they don't understand there's a level of stress that comes with this work because, and you can attest to this, that the conditions on the road change second by second. You look away and something's there. It is completely unpredictable, even if you're doing the same, route every day or whatever. And so I think that we have got to have Medicare for all as a community controlled national health service, not this diluted version that the Democrats have put their name on. We need the full strength Green New Deal. And so I think those are things that are in the interest of us. I think that particularly during this pandemic, some of us, what makes me a better choice than Jesse Ventura, I don't make comparisons. I'm not going to put anybody down, but I think that Howie Hawkins, if you read our campaign platform and you're looking at what he has and how detailed it is, you're not going to find better than that. I mean, this is something that this has been in the making for years, and there's a plan in it. He details how we fund this. It's completely comprehensive. So, I mean, I'm not just biased. Howie is one of the smartest people I know. So, if you have not read our campaign platform, I encourage y'all to do it. But I digress. Just making sure that truck drivers are cared for. During this pandemic, a lot of people's children are home. There's a lot of uncertainty as to what is going to happen in September. Are they going back to school? If you have young ones at home that go to school, are they going to go? Is it going to be safe? There's no vaccine. There's no program of test, trace, and isolate. We're not ready. And at least, I don't know what it's like in North Carolina. South Carolina is the cases are exponential as far as the rise of COVID here. It's ridiculous. And so working parents have to have that option to be home with their young people if they're able to. So I think that we drivers would definitely benefit from a universal income, particularly during COVID. But also, we need that like anybody else does. So.
Right on. And thank you for answering questions from some of my viewers. I mean, I can answer his question as well. And from what I see, Jesse Ventura reminds me of like a reality star, which actually worked with Trump at one point, and with and wrestling for what have you. And what I see coming out of the camp, I see, I mean, my point, I see like an appeal to reactionary right wing ideas. And what I see from you is legitimate, down to earth, working class organizing. That's my personal to my guest. I think we'll get into we'll get into the last question, and that is like, are you hopeful? How do you feel about the future? Your thoughts?
I'm not known for my optimism. I am a I mean, I'm a Capricorn. I mean, you don't get any moodier and gloomier than us. But I am absolutely optimistic as to what this year could be. Absolutely optimistic in where the direction that people want to go is, that people are ready. I mean, I'm hearing talk about socialism from areas that I've never heard discussing it. People are talking about things. If you had said 5 years ago, Minneapolis would be looking at defunding their police, you wouldn't have believed it if someone had told you that. But here, this is where we are. And so I think that your question is particularly a good one because we have got to imagine forward. We have to think forward of the world that we want to create before we can create it. And so I am extremely optimistic that the wars around the world of occupation that the US is involved in can be ended. I believe we can bring those troops home. I believe that we can cut the military budget by 75%, which is in our platform, and bring that cash back home and rebuild the infrastructure of this country with it. I believe that we can reimagine how we're doing public schools. I'm optimistic that we can restore wetlands and, create a new civilian conservation corps. We can do those things. I'm absolutely optimistic that we can.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.